All right, so we're gonna work on this. We're gonna make on this lab, which was Node and NPM, and which goes along with our previous session, which was require module and exports. That's right, and event emitters. I can, yeah, that's right, isn't it? Yeah, that's right. That's what it was. All right, so we're gonna work through this quickly. You can follow along. So I'll do my best here. So on the left hand side is my Visual Studio. On the right hand side is kind of some of the instruction there. And then what I expected, I would have hoped that you'd had some folders here just to create your files in there so that you're not overwriting your own code. It can happen sometimes. So walk up to this exercise 1, create a simple JavaScript file. Let's call it x.js. Again, when you want to run the terminal window, you can go to, I have it collapsed here, but there's a terminal, new terminal, Control Shift Plus, which should let you have this command line here. Again, once you recognize you have node running, which is a good thing, go through this again, npm -v. Now we're good to go. We have both npm, node package manager, and node installed on the system. So now we can start doing these exercises here. So the first step was to run npm init, because we do not have a package.json file, and we need one of those package.json file. If you notice, in here is kind of an empty directory, and you got to make sure you're on the root level here, and then you go npm init -y, and that's going to go ahead and run, and it's going to create this package.json file. Now I can start. Now I have this file. Now I can install things, right? If you notice on this side here, there is no node modules folder, and that node modules folder has all of the dependencies that we'll need for our node application, our node server. So if we wanted to go to the npm registry, like I talked about before, and pull down some of those nice uh, third-party packages that we may need to use here, that's where you'd go and you would actually get it. But now we're set up. We can follow along here on this thing here. So it just shows that we went and we created package.json, and it says we need to go and get from the npm registry a third-party module called uppercase, because we want to do some stuff with that. And it's suggesting that we go npm at the command line, npm install, but we can just say I for install. Uppercase is the name of the module, and we go -- save. We can do dev dependency -- save -- dev, and it's going to go and it's going to find npm, and it's going to pull that package down from there. And if you notice in the dependencies, it installed uppercase at this semantic versioning. Again, the semantic versioning means minor, major, minor, and patch. So this is a patch for a bug fix. This is a minor revision, and this is a major revision. And this caret and the tilde actually will control some of the version, and basically allow only patches or major upgrades. Right? Again, you got to look at the documentation, because I even forget that, and it's always a good exam question to ask what the tilde and caret does, because to be honest, I always forget what it is all the time as well, and you got to look that up. So what happens, we ran this, and it went ahead and it created this node module folder, and it created uppercase inside of there. So that's all of the dependencies we need to have that. So now we have that installed. Now we can use some of it, and we can go ahead and include that into our working file. So we have that dependency, the module, the reference of uppercase in there, and it's just showing us that we have it. At that point in time is 1.1.3. Now we have 2.0.1, so it's been updated to a major version. And then it's saying we go into our exercise 1 file, and we go ahead and let's just minimize this a little bit here, a little bit smaller, so we have a better working panel. So it's saying we go ahead and we use that require, right? We set UC as the variable, and then we go ahead and we pull that in, called uppercase, and now we have access to that entire library in that object called UC. If we want to quickly go and do console.log, and we say UC dot, and we get a bunch of things here, and we have uppercase, locale uppercase, and a bunch of things. So really it's a simple package, uppercase, and we do something really low here, so we say string, So that's basically going to have some built-in functionality, a little simple package. Let's run it here. So again, make sure that you are in the right directory. dir shows me I'm not in the exercise directory 1. So I change my directory. dir, I see it's there. So then I go node x1.js, and it does what it expects to, string uppercase. Then we are going to delete the node modules folder. So I'm going to right click this and delete the module folder. So we are kind of demonstrating that if you were to go to production with your server code, from development to say QA to production, you do not necessarily want to carry along that node module folder, because that can be a very big folder and there can be many different people who are checking into source control with different types of versioning, and we just want to rely on the package.json so that when somebody goes to deploy this, they have some automated script or something like that that will look at the package.json, and it'll internally run an npm install on it, and it's going to go and find all the dependencies and download them all and rebuild the node module folder, right? So if you can see there on the left hand side, it's rebuilding the node modules folder. And the reason why you want to do that is because that folder can get extremely large, and you don't want to be pushing that around in your final build. So again, it says repeats. So basically, it's trying to say that if you delete it and you try to run it, it's going to say cannot find uppercase, of course, because uppercase was a dependency inside of node modules, and we deleted that folder, so therefore it won't be there. But then we went ahead and we did the npm install, and then we installed everything back, and it should run as expected now, right? So we go back to it and run it. It all works, so we avoided that problem there. And then the task was to create a function named greeter in this file. So it's at app.js that will create uppercase and output hello world 10 times. So really what we're trying to get at is we want to create, using ES6 syntax. We want to call, and most likely using the arrow function, we want to create a function called greeter. Again, using the arrow syntax, right? And then we want to actually put this in there. So we would probably do a for loop. Again, I'm probably not using ES syntax for this, but really what we're doing is saying we're going to iterate 10 times, and we're going to increment it, and we are going to output hello world inside of this block here, and it's going to output this. So what did we say it was? We said hello world, right? So it could be lowercase. Hello world. And of course, when we run this, it's not going to run because it's not used. We need to invoke it to call it from the outside. So when we go to run this, it's going to do hello world 10 times. So that is pretty unusable, to be honest. So this is an extra challenge I should have put in there, but I didn't put it. Just if you wanted to just make this a little bit more reusable, what you could do is say, okay, well, I'm going to pass a parameter in here called number, or we'll just call it counter, and we can replace this 10 for counter. By the way, if you notice that it put it all in one line, I didn't want to do that. I have something called prettier that when I press save, it'll try to pretty up my code. And that's why it's on that line. So if we were to go ahead and now we can say 5, so it'll go through as a counter. It'll only iterate 5 times, and then it'll pass hello world. So I say save that. You'll see it puts it on one line there. So I run this now. It's 5 times. Great. So if we wanted to further make this a little bit more reusable, we could, again, it prettied up the parentheses because there's only one parameter. So if we further wanted to make this a little reusable, we could, again, this is a challenge, right? It wasn't the task, so I'm going beyond this. So you could pass in a message here, and then inside my console.log, just to make it a little bit more reusable, I could then uppercase the message, and then I have to remember to pass it into my greeter function here. So you could say, node is great, right? So then we are going to pass that in twice. so we have a more reusable function that we can reuse in a way that it's not hard-coded, some of the internal workings of it. So there, as you can see, notice grade is uppercased and it's outputted 2 times. So that's just it's extending that function a little bit to make it more reusable. But the original task was to just output 10 times hello world. So that was exercise number 1. All right, so exercise 2 is going to say use require and moment.js. So basically, we are going to use the third-party modules here. So what we want to do is we want to go back, cd dot dot. We want to go into our exercise 2 folder, and then here we want to either right-click new file, or we can use those menus on the top there. So ex2.js, and inside of that, we know we're in this file here. We want to then use npm install moment, and we'll say dash dash, that says globally, but I'll just put it into my dev dependencies. And by the way, when we're talking about moment in the node repository registry, if you don't know, it's this site here. By the way, Microsoft has now bought it now, so they also own GitHub, so they got a stranglehold now on some of this build tools and repositories, and it's great that they're actually doing that. So we would walk up and say moment. If we were looking for a date time, it would come up too. And here it is right here, moment.js. And you can look at the ratings and all that stuff to verify that it's very popular. I only suggest you get very popular, tried and tested packages, because you don't know what else is on there. So 11 million downloads per week, so I trust it, I guess. It has MIT license, and it has a very good documentation here that you can go and start looking on how to do some of this stuff. So that looks like a very good package. So we walk up to their npm install and say, let's install it. It's going to chug through and grab all those dependencies again, and it's going to update our node modules. If we look at the package.json, we can verify that, yes, in fact, it is there. So therefore, now we can pull it in. We can say require. Let's see what our lab says. So in exercise 2, we go and we create this code here. So what it's saying is using var, but I want to use const, so I can't overwrite it. So I want to go ahead, pull in all of that code. So moment equals require moment. So now I have the object that has all of those dot. If I can see it, now I have a whole bunch of stuff in there, right? Date format is date. All this built-in stuff is date, is duration, weeks, days. All this stuff is built into this object here that I can use. So var get current date. I know what they're going to say. They're going to say you need to, or I'm going to say, you need to rewrite this in ES6 syntax, but let's, for argument's sake, let's just do it the way it says. So we want to do a wrapped variable for moment, and we want to wrap that in a new date, the JavaScript date. So it's going to assign it to be a moment date, so it gives it a wrapper. So therefore, when you do that, you can use all of those moment features, right, that we talked about, because now that date object has been wrapped inside of the moment object, so now we have access to all that stuff. And we just want to simply console log what we wrapped. So we basically wrapped it as a moment date, so it's going to give the regular date, which a lot more properties, a lot more information on that. So we're going to invoke this, and we're going to run it. So when we walk up and we say node ex2.js, it's going to give us, I'll expand this window a little bit here just so we can see it a little bit better. It's going to go through and it's going to give us a massive object here on the current date. A lot of good information on there. It's going to say, a whole bunch of stuff, the locale, today, tomorrow, long date formats, all attached. This invalid dates, seconds, all the months of the year, all this stuff, weeks, days, short form, all this stuff already attached. So it's giving us a lot of information there, but we don't need all of that. All we want to have is we want the current date and the current time, and we want it to output like this. All right, so first thing first is let's look at this, because we don't really want the older syntax, so we'll just replace this with that fat arrow. I'll just say arrow. It's probably more nicer to say. All right, so we have this arrow syntax here. So that's basically the syntactic sugar, so we don't have to keep typing function all the time. This line is fine, I'm sure. So what we want to do is we want to go to the moment.js documentation, and we want to look at what we would need. So we'd probably need something that has a formatting and two variables to break out the time and the date. So I'm not going to dig through all that right at the moment because I already know what it is, so I can actually cheat and do copy control paste. So what we did here is, if you can see that, we why is this toolbar on the side here? It's obstructing my view. I don't know, I'll expand that a little bit out here. So let's collapse this a little bit. Ugh, the power of the problems of live coding, right? All right, so we basically wrapped again moment and wrapped, and because of that we have the object that we can do the dot format. In the dot format we have the day, month, long format, and then we also break out the time. So we have two different variables, and then we might want to go through and use a template literal in here. So we would say template literal, and we want it to look like this, which is the date and the time. So really we want a spacer in between here like that. And then if we use our templates, which is $ and the mustaches, the parentheses, yeah, those brackets. So when we do that, it'll evaluate the variable that you put in there, which is really great. You don't have to use that long concatenation way of vanilla JavaScript. And if I don't put the $ in, it'll actually throw an error. So there we go. We have it wrapped. We're using moment. We're formatting and using their API. And of course, don't take my word for it. Let me run it, because if it doesn't work, then it's basically I'm just blowing smoke here. So node ex2.js. So it outputs Thursday, March 26, 2020, 12:55 a.m. I am up making videos at 1 a.m. Can you believe that? Yes, I'm almost done here. We have another exercise and I'll be done. But just know we're burning the midnight oil here. So that's exercise number 2. We'll move on to 3. All right, next up, NodeMon. Oh, right, NodeMon. So this is going to save us a lot, because if you notice, we're always using Node to run things, and we have to do Control C and stop the execution. So that's a real pain. So first of all, we want to use the node monitoring tool, which is really great, because what it'll do is you can run it against your file, and as you're making changes, it'll constantly rebuild for you, which is really good. You might want to do it global. I already have it installed global, so I'm not going to do that. But if I just do nodemon minus v, I should have it installed. Yes, I do. So version 2.0.2. All right. So the next step after we install that, I'll show you how to run that. It'll update the global package on your node on your machine, so you won't see it necessarily in your project. It'll be the global file. So we want to go use the say.js from the NPM registry and go ahead and install that. And what that is it's a text to voice fun little package that is pretty neat. It's pretty basic, but you know what? It's kind of fun, and there's a lot of usage documentation on that there. And we want to walk up and we want to do the same thing. NPM either I or install fully say -s save -s dev. It's going to go ahead, add it to our npm modules. Wait for that to chug. We'll check your package.json, and we see say is installed right there, so we know we're all good. All right, and then there's some simple code already set up there that you would go ahead, and I already typed it through. Create a constant variable that that pulls in that entire library, say .js. So now you have as an object, and on it you have a bunch of things which are not too big. You have speak and stop and say. So that's not a lot. Very simple API, but kind of fun. So let's see if it works. So if I go and run nodemon instead of node ex3.js, it's going to kick off a monitoring tool. It says it's watching, and it's going to run it. And what happened? It didn't do anything. Why not? So I don't know if my audio is turned on.
Hello,
Oh, there you
Alex.
go. There you go. It's delayed. All right, so hello, Alex. Hello, Alex. So this is a delay here. So if we actually put it to 0 or 1, and we kickstart save.
Hello, Alex.
There you go. So it's actually text to speech, so it's actually pretty fun. Hopefully it doesn't start talking to me. Then I'll be really hearing things here at 1 o'clock a.m. All right, so the challenge was, once we got that set up, which wasn't a lot of line of code, it just said use a timeout, set timeout function to trigger a callback after a delayed amount of time, so that the text is spoken after the first Alex hello. So basically, what this is saying is, it says create a callback function that says sorry Dave, I'm sorry Dave. So that's a reference, by the way, to Space Odyssey. It's an old movie where the space station is the computer, the AI has taken over the space station. There's a guy named Dave. I don't know if you ever saw this, but that's a reference. I think it was Stanley Kubrick, but it was a very surreal kind of in the 80s. I remember that. And I think the machine was called Alex, and he had one line near the end where he says, I'm sorry, Dave. So anyhow, that's what that reference is, because the actual computer voice sounded like this one a little bit. All right, enough about movies, but okay, so here we go here. So what we want to do is do a callback.
Hello,
Oh,
Alex.
see, now NodeMon's running, so we don't want to keep,
Hello.
it's going to keep talking. So I canceled out NodeMon because it's going to keep trying to recompile, and this would be quite annoying for everybody. So I'll do constant, sorry, Dave. I am sorry, Dave. And we're going to do arrow function because it's not going to take anything here. And we're going to put, it says say.speak. And we're going to say, I'm sorry. I am sorry, Dave. All right, and the task was that we're going to set this to run at 0 time. We could have delayed it on here, but the point was we wanted to do we wanted to use a set timeout. And what set timeout is a timer, like set interval. There's a documentation there on how to use it. Set interval will just constantly keep calling the callback on an interval, where set timeout is going to have a timeout delay that you set before you actually call this. So we can do set timeout. As you can see, if I tab, it'll set it up for me. Oh, it didn't set up for me. So what it's going to do is it's going to have a function call, a handler. So sorry, Dave, and I'm going to give it an interval, which will be, let's do 2 seconds, right? So it's taking this callback function, which you could inline do that as well, but we're doing a callback, and it's going to happen 2 seconds after this one. So it's going to say, let's see if this works here, if the timing is right. So we're going to run that, and we're going to pause and wait. Oh, it crashed.
Hello.
Why did it crash? Invalid callback. So I think we cannot invoke it this way. We have to just do this, like this.
Hello. Hello, Alex. I am sorry, Dave.
There you go. All right, so let me stop this before it talks over me. All right, so to recap, what we did is we used this say module, NPM module, and we went inside and required it, and we used this tiny API, and then we created a callback function here, and then we used set timeout to call it at this every 2 seconds. If we were to say do set interval in the same way, let's try it out. It's probably going to keep saying I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Let's try it out. So I'll run it again. Pause.
Hello, Alex. I am sorry, Dave. I am sorry, Dave. I am sorry, Dave. I am sorry, Dave. I am sorry, Dave.
Okay, and I'm sorry for that, but it kept going on. So the point is, npm modules. We used a couple packages here. We used require. We used timers, and we used third-party modules. So this was just a little bit of a lab to go over those main topics, and it fits in nicely with our session. The next session is going to be continuing on node fundamentals even further, and we're going to talk about how Node.js can be a web server. Right? Talk to you next time.